Greetings. Almost 500 years ago, in 1521, Ignatius of Loyola had rallied the troops at Pamplona in Spain against the French, who vastly outnumbered them. And in that battle, he was struck in the leg by a cannonball. He ended up being taken back to his home in Loyola by the French troops. And at that point, he had a lot of time on his hands. His sister-in-law was attending to him early on, but she had to go about her own life. And he asked for chivalric romances to read, but there weren't any such books around. The only books that were there were the life of Christ and the lives of the saints. So Ignatius found himself with a lot of time on his hands, and he found himself imagining different kind of life scenarios. In one case, he was imagining himself defending the honor of a noble lady whose station was higher than all of the rest, and he would think for hours on end about the deeds he would do in her service and what he would say to defend her honor. And he would be captivated by these dreams and energized and excited. And then on another day, he would begin to picture himself doing what the saints had done, going on pilgrimage to Jerusalem, eating nothing but herbs, barefoot, dressed simply, to be in the places where Jesus lived and taught. And again, with regard to those dreams, he would be very captivated by that possibility, and energized. But he says that he noticed a difference after some time, and that was that after the first kind of daydream, he says that he felt dry and dissatisfied. But after the second kind of daydream, he noticed that he remained satisfied and joyful. And he writes in his autobiography that he began to marvel at this difference and to reflect upon it. Realizing from experience, he wrote, that some thoughts left him sad and others joyful. This is the very beginning of Ignatius's process of discernment, beginning to attend to his own interiority, his own affective life, and to reflect on it and to try to understand its meaning. He came to the conclusion that the thoughts that left him satisfied and joyful were coming from God. And so he made a decision based on that experience. And he did, in fact, set out to Jerusalem on a pilgrimage. This would change his life and the world in many respects, as it eventually leads to the founding of the Society of Jesus and his writing The Spiritual Exercises, which have been one of the most impactful books in the last 500 years or so. So like Ignatius, we have been involuntarily at home due to a health crisis. Life as we have known it has stopped. We've become more aware of mortality as he had. Is this our Cannonball moment? The MIT professor Alan Lightman writes about the pace at which we live, which is determined by the speed of communication, and he writes about how much the speed of communication has picked up in the last 10, 20 years. And so our life is at quite a frenetic pace, and that's also influenced by the need for productivity in the economy. But his concern is that we can lose ourselves in this fast-paced world that doesn't allow time for solitude or silence or reflection. He says that we lose the capacity to reflect on ourselves and what's important to us. But maybe this is that kind of time for us, as it was for Ignatius almost 500 years ago. Maybe we've had more time than we usually do to imagine different scenarios for our lives, to dream, as Ignatius did. Are you spending time recycling maybe old dreams that you had for your life, the way you used to think about your life, as Ignatius was doing? Or has this also been a time for new dreams to enter in? New thoughts about what your life could be, or your family life could be, the life of your community, your church or religious group, what the life of the country could be. And how is your affectivity impacted by those different kinds of daydreams? Which kind of dreams leave you feeling dry and dissatisfied? And which kind of dreams about your life, about your family, the community, the country, leave you feeling satisfied and joyful? Or there's a kind of joy, a kind of satisfaction that remains, that stays with you. Ignatius would recommend that, especially during this pause, during our Cannonball moment, that we attend to our interior life, our affectivity, and how are the different thoughts that we have, the different dreams we have for ourselves, for our communities, related to what's happening in our affectivity. For Ignatius, he learned here at Loyola when he was recuperating that the Spirit of God brings about a joy and a kind of peace that remains and sustains us. And he would eventually say in his teaching that such experiences of what he would call genuine spiritual consolation, they point out and open up the way we are to follow. So what are you learning about during this pause, during this our Cannonball moment? What are you discovering about yourself and your own affectivity, your own deeper desires? How is God calling you at this moment?